these are the best knitting things of 2024. I have my favorite yarns, patterns, podcasts, books, things that you will listen to while you are knitting, tools, things that have to do all with knitting. It's not, there are a couple yarns that are affiliate links, but none of it is sponsored. It is completely just what fueled my 2024 knitting projects and mindset, and it was just a good year for knitting intentionally, and so I wanted to share that with you. Okay, we're going to kick it off with yarn. Every knitter, I think, loves yarn. That's part of the joy of knitting, is that we also collect the yarn. So my favorites from this year were the Wool of the Andes Bare Worsted Weight yarn. I love this yarn. I actually first bought it because I planned to dye yarn with it. It looks really, really pretty with the lace pattern that I'm doing from the glacier scarf. And so that has been one of my favorites for sure this year. All right, the other favorite yarn that I have right here is Milla Mia Soft Merino. Now, I have been making these into mittens for my kids. It is truly incredibly super soft. I had bought these years ago, didn't make anything with them, and now I'm on a crazy kick of knitting all of these socks. So it comes in a little ball like this. I've been able to knit an entire pair of an entire pair of mittens with this yarn. And I have knit where's the other one? Children's mittens, and then the smaller toddler mittens. And so yeah, I really am happy with this yarn. It's extremely, extremely soft and extremely warm. All right, my next favorite yarn from this year has been the West Yorkshire Spinners signature yarn that I've been making for socks. I got this color and I made it for my husband. And then I also loved it so much that, where is it? I started knitting a pair of baby socks. Adorable. And then I really loved it, so I got another one, but this one has sparkles. It's the Nutcracker color, and I cannot wait to crack into this, pardon my pun, but I just think it's so soft, and it's 75% wool, 23% nylon, and then this one also has polyester for the sparkles. But I really do love this yarn for socks. I think this might be my favorite new sock weight yarn. All right, the next one, I'm gonna have to show you a picture because I don't physically have this yarn right here. I picked it out for my Christmas gift, but then have to pretend that I didn't pick it out for my Christmas gift. So it is the Alafoslopi yarn. And it's Icelandic wool, and it's wonderful. I'm so excited to make this sweater. And even though I am not knitting it yet, I am petting it because it is in my bedroom. I'm pretending I don't know where it is and that it's not wrapped up and all that, but I love it. I'm so excited to make this sweater. Okay, the next one is the Hawthorne DK sock yarn. So I got this from Knit Picks, and I'm trying to currently knit all of my worsted weight socks patterns into DK weight socks. And so the yarn that I chose to do that with is Hawthorne DK, and it is smooth like butter. It is wonderful, and I really do like the color choices. There are so many different color choices with this, so I've been really happily knitting on these socks kind of in the background. I haven't shared them yet because, like I said, they will be patterns eventually. And then my last favorite yarn from 2024 that I've been knitting is the Rowan Cashmere Tweed yarn. I don't know if they still sell this. I really don't. If you have it in your stash, love it and cherish it. If you have it and you're like, I don't think I want it anymore, sell it or give it to somebody who will love it because it's beautiful. I used it to make a very, very large shawl that I won't try to unfold all the way, but it is the Winter Honey shawl, which has honey cable repeats in it. And it's so soft and tweedy, and it's this one in particular. I don't know that they have color names. This one does not seem to, but this color in particular is the perfect shade of like a dark, cool toned green that I love. It just feels like evergreen trees in winter. My favorite finished projects from 2024 are the winter honey shawl, which I do go into more detail in some of my knitting journals, and I love it so much that I wanted to just be diving into it. And there's one little spot that I didn't weave in. It is really warm. I mean, I'm in our sunroom, which isn't heated, and I just have it over my lap, and it's extremely warm. Each ball is 96 yards, and it is a mix of extra fine merino and cashmere. This has been basically my main project all year long. I knit it last year and then tore it out because I wasn't happy. I had made a smaller size of the shawl. I made the shawlette, which when I tried on, it wasn't cutting it. It wasn't barely gonna fit as a shawl. So I made it as the shawl size, and I really do love this pattern. It has a honey repeat all the way, and then the final border, you increase. So it's, you start with the point of the triangle and then you increase. And then the final flat part atop the cross, across the top, I do that all the time. Across the top is a bigger version of the honey cable pattern. Very pretty, very cozy, very doable. I just had to focus a lot to make sure that I was crossing the right direction, because there were several times where I had to go back half a row to fix something. And then I learned a few tricks actually in this. I had never cabled without using, I don't usually use a cable needle, but I do sometimes. I usually do just a double pointed needle because for me, it's just so much easier to just slide it in, knit right off of it, slide it out. But this was the first project that I just was carefully cabling without any sort of needle. And once I figured that out, probably more than halfway through, it actually went a lot faster. But like I said, this has been my main project for the year. It's very large and it's very cozy. It's very loved already. My next favorite project that I've been working on, I already shared a little bit because of the yarn, but the actual project itself, I have been knitting the Tin Can Knits World's Simplest Mittens. Now there are a few changes that once I finish these ones and I'm like just going off on my own, I will make some changes because there are certain things that I don't like as much. I personally don't love as much of a pointy, where like your fingertips are. Some of these are pointier than others, it seems like. Like the toddler size I'm working on right now, it's very pointy. And so yeah, I'll play around with that a little bit, but it's extremely easy. This is the toddler sized. You work the cuff, you increase for the thumb, and then you hold the thumb stitches off, and then you increase, and it goes so quickly. I'm having a lot of fun with mittens right now. They take faster than socks. Besides the thumb, and then you're just decreasing for the fingertips, there's very little construction besides just knit or knit purl. And so I'm having fun with them, and I'm excited to start kind of taking some of my cables that I like to do on socks and throwing them onto some mittens and figuring out how that all fits in, because I'm realizing how much I love mittens. And then besides making children's mittens, I plan to make all kinds of mittens. I'm going to do these ones are going to actually be double layered. So this will be the inside of the mitten, and then I'm going to do a different yarn, possibly a design on the outside, and then sew it together at the cuff. Okay, my next favorite knitting project that I knit this year I'm calling them, I guess, the Lakey socks. I got this yarn up in Door County, and I knit them on our camping trip. Well, I got them during our camping trip. I think I started them that day. I'm trying to remember. Or that week. We were there for a week. I think I started them that week, and so maybe I didn't because I didn't have my ball winder. Well, regardless, they were like my summer knitting project, and I love this yarn, and it reminded me, because I was working on that while I was working on this after we got home, and the green reminded me of like the trees of camping, and the blue reminded me of the blues of Lake Michigan. So that was another favorite knitting project of mine. Again, super simple. I mean, same with the mittens, extremely simple, but just intentional and meaningful. and partly to do with the project, partly to do with the yarn, partly to do with the instance where I was knitting them, and it was just kind of all combined together. The next project, same exact story, so I'm not going to spend much time, was, I'm just going to hold one of them up, this sock. I'm going to call it the tiger sock, I guess, because it's kind of Detroit Tigers colors. Making this for my husband. I went up for a knitting retreat, also into Door County, with my mom, my sister, and my aunt. And I found this at the yarn shop like the first day, and this became the only thing that I knit. Partly because I was having trouble focusing on this while we were drinking lots of coffee and chatting and exploring Door County. So this was like a travelable one. I took it with me on the ferry across Lake Michigan to Seaver's fiber school. Is that what it's called? Not yarn shop, fiber school. Seaver's. And I pretty much just exclusively worked on this to the point where I had one sock done after our, I think it was 2 nights and 3 days that we went. I had one sock done, which for me and the amount of knitting that I normally do on a regular basis was a lot for me to finish one sock. So half of a pair in just like half of a week was a huge deal. And then it took me all the rest of summer, which basically, let me think when we did this. So it took me the rest of September and half of October to finish the second sock, if that gives you a timeline of how much time I have to knit. So another favorite knitting project of mine. It was travelable. It came with me across Lake Michigan and helped me conquer my fear of being on a boat in the middle of Lake Michigan. A little bit spooky. So that was a good one. Okay, my favorite knitting projects of 2024 that are ongoing, so they're not yet finished, but they are ongoing, are, let's see, I have 2 of them. I'll categorize these as Christmas stockings. I have 7 total that I'm making. I have 2.5 done, and it's slow progress because they're all Fair Isle. It is fingering weight yarn, and the stockings are pretty large. They're good sized, and then once I'm done knitting them, I am sewing in a liner to them. So it is a very involved project. It is something that's just going to keep on going. I hope to kind of pick up steam with them. I know I won't have them done for this Christmas, but I'm hoping to pick up steam with them after Christmas. But I'm also going to want to work on my sweater. So there's a lot, there's just so many things we want to knit, isn't there? But I love doing this. I love the goal, and that's kind of like the why behind why I'm doing it. And that's just to have some family stockings that are personalized to everyone in my family, as opposed to something you just go buy from the store, which is what we have. They're like $1 or $2 stockings from Walmart that we just kind of painted on names, and that's what we had done at the time. That's what we continued to do, but I'm excited to have like heirloom stockings for them all. And then the second ongoing project that I've really been enjoying is the glacier scarf. I've gone through the repeats, I don't know how many times, but it's like this long now maybe. It's not super long, but it does take a long time to do it. You really do, or I really do have to focus in on what part of the pattern I'm at and what row I'm on. I'm always having to write down what row I end at so I'm not confused when I pick it up later, but it is slow going. It's worsted weight yarn, and the needles aren't tiny, but it is definitely a longer project. And then the last one is the DK weight socks. I'm really excited to see how these work up, moving from worsted weight yarn and a bigger needle down. You can have a little more of the detail in it, so I'm excited to kind of bump all those patterns into DK socks. Favorite knitting tools of 2024. I would have to say my go-tos, if I had no other knitting tools, my absolute favorite must-haves this year were actually just 3 of them. It's my circular knitting needle set, which I've talked about a lot before. It is my ball winder, and it is my Amish yarn swift. I love all 3 of those. And yeah, those keep me afloat. They've worked really well all year long. I've had them for longer than a year, but they are very, very lovely to have. I would call them a must-have in my knitting tool stash. So those are the tools. My actual top knitting tip, like not a physical thing, but like an idea that I will take into the years to come, is actually from my sister. She actually told me this idea, which I thought crazy at first, but let me explain. If you are like me and you have 5 or more probably projects that you're working on at once, and I keep them in different baskets in our house, depending on where it is that I typically work on it. So if I work on something in our bedroom, it's always in a basket next to my bed. If I work on it in the living room, that project's in a basket next to my bed. Likewise with the dining room, the car, upstairs, all that. So what I was doing before is I had this one Notions bag that would have scissors, stitch markers, a ruler, extra double pointed needles for, like I said, when I do my cables. What else is in here? Yeah, those are pretty much the basics. So I was talking to her about this, how I will sit down with a project and then realize, oh wait, my Notions bag, it's not with this project. So then I'd go do the loop around the house, or sometimes I have to go out to the car, and I, could finally sit down and knit. But it does dig into that knitting time where if you have a moment to sit and knit, you don't want to have to be like searching around for all the things you need to do. You kind of just want to plop and sit. So her idea was actually to have a Notions bag with each of these baskets, with each of these projects, fully stocked. And that's what tripped me up, is the fully stocked part, because we're on a tighter budget. And so I thought, well, if I have 5 projects, well, now I need to go buy 5 more pairs of scissors. I need to go buy 5 more tape measures. And she was so, so sweet. I don't know if it was when we were like there talking or right when she got home, but she ordered on Amazon and then sent them to me as a surprise, a set of tape measurers, a set of, I don't have it in this one. Hold on. Let me find it. It's not with this basket. I do have scissors with this project bag, but it was my original. So this was like my original bag. These were my original scissors. I had all the things that I could possibly need in here, and it was so stuffed, and I just tried to remember where it was. And if I was ever sitting somewhere and I was like, oh, can so-and-so, can you please grab my bag with the sunflower? I think it's next to my bed. Or maybe it's upstairs. I don't know. So I had to kind of like go search for it. So anyway, where was I? Oh, amazing. She got me a set. And when I mean set, like I already have 5 of these at least in my different baskets. And these are the extras. Like a bulk amount of these very cheap plasticky scissors. So helpful to have a pair of scissors in every bag. She got me, because then we were talking about cabling and how I didn't have, what are these, like funny little diaper pins? I didn't have any of these. So now same thing, like one big set of them, inexpensive. Like this is doable, whether it's you getting them or you ask someone else to get them for your birthday or Christmas or Mother's Day, or you save up for them. And then the other thing was the actual Notions bags. I only really had the one. So she got me a set. They all have, they all have Bible verses on them. Some little encouragement. And some of them are long, some of them are short. So yeah, I'm now able to have a fully stocked Notions bag with scissors, stitch markers. It's in a little Notions bag. That's super cute. I have some of these diaper pins for holding your stitches on. And scissors. I already said scissors. What else is in them? I do always keep double pointed needles in here if I'm doing socks and I need to quickly move on to the toe or the heel or the toe. Yarn needles, things like that. Always fully stocked. That would be my number 1 tip going into next year, is to just, they don't have to be the best, most expensive things to be extremely useful for the reason of having them. Okay, so my favorite 2024 knitting memories, there are 2. One is going up to Door County for the knitting retreat with my mom and my sister and my aunt. It was so calm and fun. And then the other one was just this past week, seeing my girls' faces when we went into Wool & Company. They also knit and they crochet, and they are discovering the joys of seeing all the different colors of yarns and feeling all the yarns and learning what they're all made of and what you can do with them all. So I will definitely be taking them back for kind of like a date, and that was just a really special knitting memory, is that they do love to knit and they share this love with me, and maybe one day we'll be doing knitting retreats together and definitely yarn shop dates for sure. The next two things that I have, well, three things that I have for my 2024 favorites are favorite podcasts, YouTube channels, and books that I've read. These are the things that I do while I'm sitting and knitting and just being cozy with my coffee or my tea or my cocoa. So I wanted to share them with you. These are definitely my favorites. It's not by any means a list of everything that I've read or everything that I've watched. So I guess we'll start there. We'll start with the audio. These are my favorite podcasts. So the first one is homeschooling only, and I'll just get it out of the way right away because in case you're not homeschooling, it might not be relevant. But this is the Coffee with Carrie podcast. Definitely recommend it. Her kids are all older, graduated. I think she might have one more that she's still teaching, so she knows what she's talking about. She's done it all. She interviews great other home educators, and she just shares practical ideas, and it's just a lot of fun to listen to her episodes. The next one is Homemaker Chic podcast. I love this one. One of the ladies is someone who lives up in Door County, which I love to go visit, and the other lives out west. So basically they come together and they talk about all the different aspects of homemaking and just running a home and managing a family. And so I always get something very useful out of listening to them. Another one in the homemaking, mothering, homeschooling realm of things is Raising Arrows. And I really like how Amy just has lots of practical ideas for large family living. I wouldn't consider my family to be large family. There's 6 of us, and that's how I grew up, so it's just regular for me. But I do know that tips that are told for families with 3 or 4 or 5, it doesn't always work for us. So listening to ideas, for example, I really loved how she talks about how to organize your van, like your car, for a large family. And now we have different types of vans. I have a minivan and she has a van, but I loved the ideas because I could take those ideas and kind of make them slightly smaller and make them last or work well in our life. So I do really like that. If you find that you don't really resonate with some of the, mothering, home organization, schedule your life around advice out there, because you have more than the average family amount of people living in your house, then I definitely recommend Raising Arrows podcast. All right, I will recommend this one every year. This is the Lazy Genius podcast. Kendra goes through like every aspect of your home, your life, your relationships, your, how you think about things, and she helps you to be a genius about things that matter and lazy about the things that don't. So instead of trying to do it all, you kind of pull apart and find what are the things about this that actually matter, or what is the one thing that matters. Then you just dive after that. Instead of trying to capture everything with a big net, you're deciding what matters, and she helps you really walk through all of that. And then the last one is new for me. This is called Happily Hormonal, and I really like listening to her episodes on health. And I feel like I still have so much to learn. It's the type of topic when you learn something, it just takes you down a rabbit hole of more. But in the health world, the category for her podcast is specifically hormones. So if you suspect, maybe my moods aren't quite what I think they should be, or maybe my gut health is affecting my hormones. See, there's just so much to learn from it. But she does have really good tips as far as, feeding yourself well. And I realized I will sometimes go parts of the day without having actually fed myself well. And it's no wonder that I'm exhausted and tired, because I look back at what has gone into my body earlier in the day and I'm like, well, yeah, that's exactly why. And so, yeah, I really suggest you take a listen to Happily Hormonal. I'm a visual learner. I love hearing stories, but I love seeing the stories unfold. So these are my favorite YouTube channels. Some are knitting. It's a mix of knitting and homesteading and homemaking, some travel, some gardening, or sewing is in there. So I'm just going to list them out. I could spend all day talking about them, but I'm just going to list them out in a pretty basic fashion. So number 1, and it's not in a top, there's no order to this. It's just as I thought of them, these are definitely the ones I go back to. Pine and Prospect Home decor. Allison, and her name is just Allison, and actually I think she has a space between each letter. Lifestyle. A little note on Allison: she is newly a mother. She's pretty young compared to me, but my goodness, she has such a good attitude. She is just so positive, but I don't know. I love her storytelling, and even though it on the outside seems like we live completely different lives. She lives in Florida, has a, maybe still a newborn. She has one little baby. On the outside, it looks like two different lifestyles, because it really is, but it's just so fun. I feel like she keeps me young, and I feel like I always get such good ideas from her. One thing that I really love, I've always wanted to do, but we never have, and I don't know if we ever will. She has a little free library that she, signed up to set up, and she decorates it with the seasons. So if you live in Florida and if you ever drive by a house that sometimes has like seashells all over it in the summertime, or, like butterflies in the springtime, and she does something for Christmas and like little pumpkins in the fall. It's just like the little details that just make life fun, I think. Okay, also number 3 is Simple Farmhouse Life. She goes over a lot of homemaking, sourdough and sewing and mothering. Okay, 4 is Rooney Sewing Patterns. This is really nice. I love hearing her talk about just making time to sew, beginner projects, how to sew as a mother, what to sew for your kids, what to sew for yourself. I love her style. She's very calming. I haven't quite implemented them yet. I really need to get onto the sewing machine and actually start using it, but I love watching her videos and listening to the story that she's telling and watching the tutorials. Our number 5, Peter Santinello. This is kind of under the realm of travel, but I really love how he doesn't go because he's showing you the best of everything. He goes and he finds real people who live in these different areas of the country and even the world, but I specifically like the ones where he is going to different areas of our country. You think you know a place just based on what you have heard from it. Maybe you visited it once and so you've seen one side of it, but he goes to all these different areas and just really gets into what it's like living there, what the stories are there, and how it is portrayed versus what it's really like living there. So Peter Santinello, I really like his stories. Okay, the next 2 are homesteading accounts. It is the Seasonal Homestead and the Elliott Homestead. Fantastic. They do a lot with cooking and canning and gardening and all sorts of things. So those 2 are very good. My favorite knitting continues to be Knitting Traditions. I don't have the time to knit all the sweaters she does. I know she has a new baby, but I have 4 kids. I can't knit all the sweaters she knits. I love looking at them though. They're beautiful. And I love her choices of rustic yarn. So Knitting Traditions. And then I also have really gotten into Andrea Mowry's podcast. I know she's been doing it for a long time, and obviously I knit her things. This is her shawl pattern right here. But I really love her style of podcast because I find that in her talking about the patterns and answering the questions, I'm learning so much about knitting. I mean, I've been knitting for maybe 14 years now, and there's just so much to knitting that I still have to learn. Obviously, I think we all still could learn more about knitting, but I'm not making all the patterns that she's putting out there, but I'm picking up a lot of the information, and especially her answering the questions, it's very helpful. Like steeking. I've never steeked a pattern. I kind of have no interest in doing it, but I feel like I've heard her talk about it enough where it's a little less scary to try to figure out. All right, a very calming one that I suggest on like a Saturday morning is Out and About Walking. They literally just walk around little different villages or like the countryside of the Cotswolds, and there's no talking. You just hear the crunching of their feet. It's not bouncy. Whatever camera that person uses, it's not bouncy. You don't feel like you're gonna get nauseous from watching it. And it's beautiful, it's calm, it's so serene to know that somewhere like that exists in the world. And I'm always shocked that like nobody's out being noisy. It's always just so calm and quiet. Okay, the next 2 are Scandinavian lifestyle accounts, and they're similar in some ways and different in others. One is Sanna Vara, and the other is Jonna Jinton. I don't know how to pronounce their names, I'm so sorry. But one of them, I believe, lives in Norway, and the other lives in Sweden. And one of them she makes jewelry, and the other knits sweaters a lot. That's what actually got me to Sanna's website at first, or her video, her YouTube channel at first, is that she had all these Icelandic sweaters that got me totally hooked on knitting Icelandic sweaters now. But yeah, those are very fun. Another knitting channel that I really like is Kutovakika. I don't know how to pronounce it, but she has a lot of fun energy, and she knits really pretty sweaters also. Very pretty. Clearly, I love the idea of knitting sweaters. I just don't knit sweaters very often, so I take what parts of knitting sweaters, which are usually cables, that I like, and I try to put them into socks, or now mittens, and like on a smaller, doable scale. And then the last one is also a lifestyle account. It is Simply Living Alaska. This couple moved from somewhere along the west coast of the US, and they moved up into Alaska, and they've gone through several different cabins, and now they're onto a new cabin. I'm not sure. I think they kind of move slightly more, what's the word I'm looking for? Slightly more wilder, more into the wilderness, more rural, I guess is what I'm trying to say, as they figure out and get their bearings. They started, I think, a little closer to a town or a city, and it seems like they find a new house that meets their new skill level or their needs, and it's just so pretty. They're very artistic. They're very, they work well together in all their projects. They do everything themselves, it seems, and so it's fun to watch them. All right, the best books of 2024. I have some books here that I've read, and then I have some starred that are ones that I read to my kids. All of these are ones that I had put on Goodreads, which I'll put a link to my Goodreads if you want to look at all the things I've been reading and my kids have been reading. I've given all of these 5 stars. So if it wasn't a 5-star, it clearly wasn't a best of 2024. So the first one, I'll kind of go chronologically through the year. Last winter I started, so then by March I finished The Long Winter, which I just loved. It's one of the Laura Ingalls books, and I really love seeing their just their struggles in going through I think it was North Dakota, or was it South Dakota, one of the Dakotas, in the winter, and all the struggles that came with how much snow they got and just how bitterly cold it was and what little they had, and just their intentionality through it all, their resilience through it all. And I thought that was a really good story. I had started it a few years ago and then hadn't finished it. Loved it, but hadn't finished it. So I finally restarted it and then finished it, and I really liked that one. So that was March. April, I read with my kids Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This we actually listened to on an audio version on our Yodo player. And we all loved this one. It's hilarious. Way better than the movie. Way better than the movie. Okay, the next one we read another one called Paddle to the Sea. And this was a really fun story, walking you through, I guess, boating you through the way that you can actually get to the sea. If you start at the north side of Lake Superior, it travels you all along through the Great Lakes, down, out the river, and to the ocean, which was this little wooden canoe's intended journey. So that was a fun one to do. Okay, April was when I finished Persuasion. April is also when we finished Little House in the Big Woods, which definitely felt easier to read than The Long Winter. It feels like that was definitely a good one to start with my kids. Okay, May, I finished Old Herbaceous. We also finished Pippi Longstocking. Backtracking, this is in a strange order, but backtracking to April, I finished The Princess Bride. Also way better than the movie. We have a March one, really backtracking. I don't know why it came in this order from Goodreads. The Boxcar Children, the original one. May, I finished Jayber Crow, fell in love with Wendell Berry's writing. And then in May, we read The BFG and Matilda. So my kids fell in love with Roald Dahl's writing. And then June, I read Hannah Coulter by Wendell Berry. September, we took a big break from reading in summer, it seems like. We did a lot of camping, a lot of pool days, and so we read a little bit more picture books. But we started reading and then finished in September a book called The Rise and Fall of Mount Majestic, which is a really fun story. December, we have finished Mary Poppins, and I have finished Mere Christianity, and then we are so close to finishing Heidi. We're like I think it's the second to last chapter, if not the last chapter. We're so close, but we do really like it. It's kind of, I'm not sure. I guess I would say dry in that there's no humor, but we do really like the story. So that has been our year in books.